I'm not here to be anyone else or to be like someone else. I'm here to be me and bring what I bring to the table. And I think that's what I want to do for other people.
Welcome to The Fearless Foodie, the podcast that gets honest about what it really takes to thrive in food and retail. I'm Amy Wilkinson, coach, speaker and trusted partner to food industry teams with lived experience of the pace, pressure and politics that come with the job. Fearless Foodies cut through the fluff and get straight to what actually helps. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Fearless Foodie podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by, I think, another fearless foodie, a fearless woman out there in the food industry. Today, I have with me Fran Ball, who is the Senior VP for UK Supply Chain at Arla Foods. Welcome, Fran.
Thank you, Amy. Lovely to be here.
We met a couple of years ago, didn't we? When I was a judge for Food Manufacturer Awards and you were one of the entrants and you won. And I was really impressed at the time by you, Fran, but also by all the work that was being done at Arla. I mean, I have to just say one of the things that was really impressive was that you did this really great comedy video as well, didn't you? So I was like, she's good fun as well. But I really wanted to get you on the podcast, Fran, because of all of that stuff that you talked about that Arla are doing. And I know that you're a driving force and I know, I was really inspired by it. And we've had some conversations since that have really, I've really seen how you want to make a real positive difference in the industry. And when we were chatting, we were like, we're getting a bit long in the tooth now and you have that feeling of wanting to give back. So that's why I wanted to get you on and we'll talk about some of that stuff. But in the meantime, just give us a little bit of a potted history of who you are, because there'll be people on the pod that don't know you yet.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Fran Ball. I've been in the food industry, probably getting on for 30 years or something now, maybe not quite that long. Started my life in food ingredients, and then I worked in Coffee Nation when it was a tiny little startup entrepreneurial company, which is now, you probably all know it as Costa Express. So very, very different to the company I started in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an engineer by background, actually. So did manufacturing engineering at university and was sponsored through that. Then I joined Carlsberg. So came back up to Yorkshire to my roots and worked for Carlsberg. Then I moved across to Britvic Soft Drinks, again into another big corporation, and where we were looking after Pepsi products. So that was a different but similar experience. And then 12 years ago, moved to Arla Foods, and I've done a number of different roles here. So all through my career, majority been in supply chain, but many different types of companies, as you can hear from my little resume there. Started in QEHS, so Quality Environment, Health and Safety in Arla, then worked globally across Europe at milk and yogurt sites, came back and ran one of our big production sites, then looked after production, and then was very honoured to be asked to run our UK supply chain in August of this year. So for the last 4 months, I've been running the whole of supply chain, so 2,800 colleagues, where we're collecting the milk from the farmers and processing the milk, storing it, and then delivering it to our customers. So a great opportunity.
Yeah, and as supply chains go, it's in some roles, say you might be supply chain in, a small manufacturer or something, and the supply chain, yes, might be quite, you're talking about something that's really quite complex. You've got lots and lots of different farmers, lots of different things that you have to think about, like it's a whole industry within itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nearly 2,000 farmers own Arla, actually. So we're a cooperative. I don't know if you knew that, but Arla Foods is one of a big cooperative globally, and we have 2,000 farmer owners in the UK that we collect their milk every day or every other day from them.
So it's almost like a different feeling of responsibility as well when you're in that space as well. You're part of lots of people's businesses, which is great. It's a great opportunity, but also I imagine quite a responsibility.
I have a fantastic team around me, though, who look after each of the sites and the depots and the warehouses. So, they do a fantastic job as well. Make sure my job's easier.
Yeah. So you've been around for nearly 30 years. Well, it's funny, isn't it? I think once you get past 20 years, you're like, I'm just going to stop saying how many years it is now. But what do you, if you had to say that something that was looking back on the industry you joined 30 years ago to the one that you're leading in now, what would you say feels most different between those years?
I think a number of things are different. I think one of the defining moments for me was in COVID times, because I think before that it was the food industry. Oh yeah, it's the food industry. I think during COVID times, everyone realised how really, really important
Mm.
the UK food industry was. And certainly that feeling of what I'm doing is making a difference. And I'm actually critical to the UK, making sure people have food to eat and that stay nourished during this difficult time that we went through. So I think that was a big thing. I think diversity is a big thing. I think we see a lot more diverse roles and a lot more diversity in terms of the colleagues that we have on site. I think, automation has come in, digitalization has come in, which has made jobs change quite a lot. But I also think the pride that we have in the food industry is different as well. I think people are really proud to work in the food industry now. And I think we are slowly changing the shape of that.
Yeah, there's when I said like what one thing, there's so much that has changed, hasn't there? But like you say, I think everybody in the UK, well, not just the UK, probably globally, is a lot more conscious of the existence of the food industry, because like COVID was the first time we actually like considered that there could be scarcity of food, and and it almost brought to light, didn't it? The sustainability agenda had been around forever and people weren't necessarily listening or taking notice, and actually it was that one of those moments where it was like, actually something could be, there's a real risk here, kind of thing. So yeah.
And I think the pride thing came out because I think people realized at first, I think people were like, should we not all be at home? But then quite quickly, people actually were like, no, I'm making a difference now.
Yeah. It was that key worker thing, wasn't it? It was like, yeah, I am as important as, somebody that's keeping the nation alive.
Yeah. And I think we've really tried to build on that in Arla. And we talk about pride in every drop as one of our little sayings. And we talk a lot about what have we done that's made us proud, either this week or this month. And I think that's keep reminding ourselves that that's really important.
Yeah. And obviously, I got a bit of an inside track of some of the work that's done at Arla, and from when you had your submission for Food Manufacturer of the Year, Food Employer of the Year. I think you won both, didn't you, that year? It was like the whammies. But a big part of that, as it felt to me, was it felt genuine. Well, I think I am saying that I know of other businesses where there's quite a lot of paying lip service. We might have values on the wall, but they're not necessarily lived by the people. Or we say things like bring your whole self to work, but then don't actually want people to do that. And I get the impression that at Arla, you can kind of bring your whole self to work. And I know that's something that you actively encourage. Talk to me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that we very much pride ourselves on is we don't just have these big, like you say, strategies or posters on the wall that then our behaviours don't match that. The culture that we drive is super important. It's super important to our CEO. We keep things for a long time in Arla, if that makes sense. So we build something, we keep it. We don't then change it every 2 minutes. So whether that's our mission, our vision, or our values around lead, sense, and create, we then build on them and they stand the test of time. I think that's quite important. But when it comes to bringing your whole self to work, I think what's really important for me is people feel that, everyone's got a life and people can bring that life to work as well and not have to sort of pretend everything's okay if everything's not okay. And I think as a leader, it's really important to know your team. And if you know your team, you know when things aren't okay, but also permission for it not to be okay. And then they need to go and do whatever it is they need to do, whether it's a health issue, whether it's a family issue, whether it's an, aging parents issue, whether it's a carer issue, whatever that issue is. I think it's important that people feel able to deal with that alongside their work. And if you try to hide those things, I think it's just difficult for the individual, but also you're not getting the best of that person as well. And I think one of the things that I try to do is make sure I'm vocal about those things when they happen to me. So, when my kids were younger, I always used to be, and I will take the call if it's from the school. Now it's my kids know, unless it's a real emergency, not to go home at work.
Yeah.
But, now I have elderly parents, and if they need me, I know that I need to pick that phone call up. Or, I've had a couple of occasions when my dad's been in hospital and I've been very vocal with my team about, please bear with me. I've got a personal challenge today. And I think that gives permission for my team and others in the teams to do similar, because work is part of your life and it's a really big and important part of your life, but you also have a life outside work, and it's important that we support that as well as employers.
Yeah. It's essentially recognizing that people are human, it's human beings that we're having. And I think, it's almost like when I left university, I've got my first job, and I mean, we used to wear suits back then, it's that long ago. But it was almost like this idea that professionalism was something that was different to being a human. It's almost like I need to be a robot and I need to put this mask on. I think that, was the case. That was the expectation, but I don't think that is in businesses like Arla anyway, that expectation has lessened. So I guess, what are you seeing as a result of that, in that you are, you're creating a culture where people are able to be a bit more human and a bit more open about what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of my direct reports have actually said that to me in their one-to-ones. They've said, Fran, one of the things when we've been doing some coaching conversations, they've said to their coach, when I'm talking to Fran, I don't have to have a mask. And I'm like, what are you on about? Wear a mask. And it's exactly that point of, I've got to have this air of sort of not me. I've got to make sure I say everything's okay, and actually just being honest about if something's difficult or you don't know the answer or you need some help. That vulnerability, I think that's really, really important, because none of us know all the answers to everything. And we all have challenges where we say, I don't know how to do that. I need some help. And then finding that help to unlock that problem, I think that just means people can spend energy on the right things, rather than sort of energy on worrying about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen if I say I can't do this, or I say I don't know, and you tend to over dramatize everything. And I know I do it. I also do it.
Yeah.
It's always worse in the middle of the night, isn't it? That when you're back the next day, or you have a call with someone and you say, oh, actually, I can rationalize it now. But I think just showing that human side, and it isn't when you're a graduate, it isn't when you're a middle manager, it's not when you're a senior, it's at all levels these things happen, and talking about them I think is really important.
Well, and I think you admitting that on a podcast that people will listen to, knowing that a senior leader feels that way as well, because that's something I do training and coaching with people straight out of apprenticeships all the way up to exec level. And one thing that I know is we're all human, and we all worry about what other people think of us.
Yeah.
And it's a human trait, it's actually a survival mechanism that it's there. But I think everybody seems to think that everybody else knows what they're doing, and they're not everybody's winging it. But to know that you get that feeling, those feelings of self-doubt, they happen at whatever level you are. And I would say as well, if you don't get them, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. You're probably too much in your comfort zone, aren't you?
Exactly, because for me, some of that links to adrenaline as well, and that kind of slight, we used to call it butterflies in my tummy. If I don't have butterflies in my tummy when I've got a really important meeting, then I am wondering if I'm, ready to move on to something else, because that butterflies in your tummy is also what really drives you to do really, really well, I think. But just going back to that point, though, I think if you're having a really difficult day, or you're having a really challenging thing in front of you, I think for me, sometimes it's good to just take a moment, and that might be just get up and walk a little bit and go outside and get some fresh air. I mean, I think we sit a lot, don't we? We have very sedentary lives. Well, I certainly do. I know, sitting in front of a computer a lot, and sometimes just that 5-10 minutes walking around, getting some fresh air, looking at something green, just clears your head. And then when you can come back and you're like, right, and then putting it down on a piece of paper always helps for me as well. I'm still a bit of a pen and paper girl, even though I've got on my computer, but writing it down and splitting it up into work, and I think that can also help just to get your thoughts in order and get you to go again.
Yeah, the power of that pause to take a step back. You're going to actually be more rational. You're going to do a better job if you do allow yourself a moment to breathe. I mean, I have this big piece of paper and write once where I know that I'm in overwhelm when the big piece of paper comes out that I write everything on, but it's getting it out of your head so you're not getting that 4 o'clock in the morning whirring that we get.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say, women of a certain age get even more, that menopausal women, we do, there will be women listening. We do that. It isn't just you. We do all wake up at between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning thinking about things, which actually leads me quite nicely on to talking about some of the initiatives that Arla do in terms of diversity, equality, all of that sort of stuff. Because one of the things you mentioned to me was about Arla's gender strategy, and that you've got real engagement in that, and you're quite passionate about. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So we've got, I guess there's two areas that I sponsor. One is our gender strategy and supply chain. So we have a nice slogan now, 30 by 30. So we want to be 30% women by 2030, which is quite a challenge for us because that's across all levels. And then we also have a Balance at Arla network. So one of our employee communities is called Balance at Arla. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But if we come back to the gender strategy, think again, really proud. 3 years ago, we started this. Myself and my HR director said, we've got to do something about this. We weren't quite sure what we needed to do. So we got a few like-minded people together and we were really clear quite quickly that there was 3 areas we needed to work in. We needed to attract more women. We needed to develop more women and we needed to retain more women. So, and those 3 areas have been what's been the pillars, if you like, of our strategy. So under attract, it's been all sorts of different things around how we do adverts to making sure we've always got male and female on the panel when we're doing interviews. Really now driving having at least one women applicant in all roles. It's not always easy, but trying to make sure we do that. And then probably aware we've got some big investments going on where we're going to be recruiting significant amount of women. So really dialing up that, can we get to 50% on those big recruitment drives? So where we've got near 100 people that we're recruiting, those things are going to really change the dial.
Yeah.
So a lot working with our talent acquisition team on how do we really make sure that we get our fair share. Similarly on our graduates and our engineering apprentice schemes, making sure that we get the right level of applications, and then we do the selection in that way to make sure we get that. So starting to make some inroads there. We've gone from 16 to 20% applicants overall. I mean, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we're seeing now in terms of, some of the roles that we've then promoted. So again, internal applicants, we've now moved both on direct plus and senior managers in a really strong way. We're actually over 30% on both of those metrics now. So our pipeline is starting. So then on develop, it was really about making sure we have clear development plans for our female colleagues, but also not, and this was really important to me as well, we don't want to do this and say it's only for women. So whatever we do, we want to make sure that actually it's for all as well. So where we've been increasing on development plans and making sure we're really clear on our talent program, that is across everything and we've got that fair share and that balance in that. And then some of the smaller things that we've done on retain, originally we had a lot of women leaving. Like our turnover rate was like something like 3-4 times higher than for men. And so we were like, what's going on? Yeah. So we did an awful lot of listening groups where we just said, come on, what's going on? What is it that we're not doing that means people are leaving?
I was going to say, what was driving it?
I think it was many different things.
Okay.
I think probably a lot of it was around, we just weren't really listening properly to what women need and want. And actually one of the things that we're doing this year is actually upskilling our leaders, so our site directors and senior managers, on how do you make sure that you're doing more of that active listening around what you need. So basic things, Amy, like, not uniforms that weren't fitting properly because we had like generic uniform. In places we didn't have the right number of, changing areas or cubicles or lockers for women. We're now saying, okay, if we want to get to 30 by 30, what does that take? So I think things like that, just taking a really active stance. Some of the other things around the simple stuff like hairdryers, changing rooms and mirrors so people could get changed after work and go out. So really thinking about what do women want? Things like, we call it inclusion starts with I and inclusion starts with us. So, what is acceptable? What is banter? What is not banter? And what is unacceptable in terms of the conversations going on in the canteen and having those open conversations with team leaders and the team in a safe space so that people could actually sort of bring these things rather than sort of saying, oh, I'm not going to put up with this and then leaving for something else. So really actively trying to understand what is it that we need to make that environment where everybody can thrive.
All right, time to give a quick shout out to the people making this podcast happen. These are the brilliant sponsors backing bold, fearless conversations like this one. Let's hear from them. Ever chased a test result at 5:59 p.m. on a Friday? Yeah, we've been there too. That's why we're proud to be partnered with IFP Labs, a lab network that actually gets what it's like to work in food. They support businesses across Europe with accredited testing for food, feed, swabs, water and more. And they do it with a quick turnaround, expert insight, and genuinely reliable service. IFP Labs is a laboratory network made up of companies who we know and trust because they're already supporting the people behind the products you love. Check them out at ifp-labs.com and breathe a little easier next time you've got a product launch riding on that test report. If you're a woman working in food or retail and craving connection that isn't all small talk and job titles, come join Fearless Women Connect. Our free monthly sessions include lunch and learns with fresh ideas and friendly faces, plus Cuppa Connect, an informal chat inspired by the podcast, where we ditch the hierarchy and talk honestly about work and life. Sign up for free at the Fearless Foodies website. We'd love to see you there. And we're back. Let's dive right in. I really love that approach in that, well, obviously I love the approach of active listening. I'm a coach, that's what we do, but also that proactively going out and asking people to talk to you about what the problems are and stuff. And it almost, I'm sort of making links in my head to safety, you know, like it's safety first culture and we're always looking for the near misses. And actually it's better if you have more near misses. You would rather know more than not know it. And then the accident happens.
The safety conversation.
Yes. Yeah. It's the same sorts of principles.
And we really badged them as stay conversations rather than, so it was the people that were still with us about what's going to make you stay, not why do you want to leave. And I think that, again, that positioning was really important. And we're starting to see it now, and we're starting to see more women coming up through the ranks. We're not where we need to be. We've still got that journey, but the dialogue is definitely changing and the approach is definitely changing.
Yeah.
And like I said, we just launched it for the 3rd year, and, you know, I was sort of front-ended it, and there was, you know, upwards of just about 60 colleagues who are actively working on this now. So from that small group, we've now got lots of colleagues, male and female. So allyship is also super important to us as well. So making sure we've got, you know, male allies that really want to work on this agenda, and that it isn't something that's threatening to men, because I think that's also important, that it is this point of balance. And that brings me, I guess, to the colleague community that we have across Arla that I sponsor, that's called Balance. And again, this is very much about how do we create this environment where everyone can thrive. And I think, you know, yes, we celebrate International Women's Day, but we've just celebrated International Men's Day and done a whole week of activities around that. We had an Inspire Her event where we talked about women's you know, journeys, career journeys, but a lot of male allies that came along to that session as well, and discussed some of the, you know, how, again, back to that authenticity and bringing our whole selves to work and just making it into a bigger conversation. So yeah, we're starting a bit of a movement. We're not finished. We've got a lot more to do, but really feel like we're on the right track now, and really feel like there are good things happening, that some small, some bigger, but we're making the right headway.
Yeah, I love that. And I've got a really simple, like, I don't really know how to phrase it apart from say, why does it matter? Because I'm just thinking about people that are in smaller businesses, people that aren't as far ahead in this journey, or people that are skeptical, like, why do we need this? I know we've got opinions on it, but from your perspective and from a business perspective, why do you think it matters that we do this work?
I mean, I heard it spoken about at one of the DIG conferences, and someone said, you know, if you don't fish in the big pool, you don't get the best talent. And I think if you put, you know, if you're only looking at a small pool of people, i.e. just male, for example, you're missing out on all that diverse talent. If you're just looking at certain type of male, then you know, we make that pool even smaller. So, you know, A, you're not going to get the best people, and B, we all know, you know, there's lots of reviews written about it, that more diverse thought means better ideas, better solutions, better business at the end of the day. So I think it's not easy to do. That's very true. But I think the benefits that you get, that diversity of thought, that different opinion of how to do something. And I think, you know, as the fight for talent becomes greater, and we all want the best people in our businesses, you have to make sure you're, to use the phrase I heard, fishing in the biggest pool possible, to get the best people.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it matters. And it matters because we want everyone to feel like they can find a home in business. I think that's also important. That's definitely something that was important to me. I didn't want to have to conform to something else. I wanted to be me and find a business that I could be me. And I think whether that's because I'm a woman or because, you know, I'm of a different ethnic background, we want everybody to feel like that they could be at home in their business.
Yeah.
Certainly that's what one and Arla, and
Yeah.
that can bring all their skills and talents to the business.
Yeah. And I think that was something you said to me as well around if somebody's listening and they're not feeling those things, they might be in the wrong business.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say at the
Yeah,
end.
sorry. I've pipped you to the post, but I think it's relevant here because I think you're absolutely right. I think there's so much that it matters because of that diversity of thought. It's because, the industry needs to evolve and adapt. And we can only do that by having different thought processes, different ways of doing things, thinking innovatively. And if we do things the way we've always done it, then we'll get what we've always had. But there is also that on a personal level, I feel like for me now, I don't want to work with businesses that aren't on this journey of trying to make themselves more diverse or, have the same values of you as I do. And I guess that's what you're talking about and that I've pipped you to the post and talking about, because it matters because we spend so much time at work and we're human beings at work, right? And thinking about AI and all of that, that's going to change our landscape. But at the heart of it all, we're still going to be humans in there. So you've got to be human centric in the way we think about how we do things.
And I think, why does it matter to me personally? I think, when I started in engineering all those years ago, it was 20-30% women. My daughter's just started engineering last year. And it's still similar amounts of women.
No,
and there's
really.
still, and I'm like, we've not progressed really in that space to the extent that we'd want to. So I think now I'm in this position, I feel real responsibility to be more vocal and to, allow people to see me and think, you can do a senior exec role and, you can have a life and you can make that fit. It's not all or nothing. I mean, I'm not going to pretend, I had it all, because I think we would be naive to think that. But I think you can have a life and an executive role. I think that's definitely possible. You have to just make choices like we do in all things in life and choose where your red lines are and where the things you're not going to compromise on and where are the things that you are. And as long as you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable with that in your life, then I think it's fine. But I want people to see me and think, I can do that. That could be me. Not, oh, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah. And your daughter obviously thinks that, because I love the fact that she's gone to do engineering. But I think you're absolutely right. And I think those role models are so important. And if I think back earlier in my career, I can remember having a moment thinking, where do all the women go? All the women over 40 seem to disappear. That's how I felt. And it doesn't feel as much like that now. But, we know a lot of those reasons are because they didn't feel like they, couldn't have it all, or we didn't know as much about the menopause. So, that was going on. Like, I've learned all of this since. Yeah. But actually, it's so important for people to see people like them at the top, isn't it?
And I think, going back to your point about wearing a mask, I think when I started work, you talked about how you, as a graduate, I felt this, I need to behave more like what all the other people are, which were to a larger extent were men.
I was going to say like a man. Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly when I realized. I think after I'd had a couple of, let's just call it difficult situations, maybe, that I look back now and say were completely unacceptable, by the way. But at the time, I saw them as learning opportunities. And I thought, do you know what? No, I'm going to be me. And I think that's really important. And as I've grown older, I think I'm more and more, no, I'm going to be me. I'm not here to be anyone else or to be like someone else. I'm here to be me and bring what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want to do for other people.
Yeah. And I think as well, I probably felt the same. Like, I used to only see female role models that felt like they'd had to fight their way and they'd had to act like a man, or, in terms of the behaviours to get where they are. Whereas, the approach that you're talking about is not that. It is about, still being, having the feminine traits and the, I always hate this because I'm always worried about, stereotyping either way. A man can have empathy, a man can have, these other traits as well. But they're traditionally thought as more feminine traits. But it's good, and I think it's helpful for people to see that you can just be whoever you are and still use your strengths to get to those senior leadership positions. And actually, if I look back on my career, it was when I stopped trying to put that mask on and pretend everything was okay when it wasn't okay, that I actually started to build trust with people and started to actually be able to perform at work. Because sometimes, like when the mask is so strong and you're spending all your time worrying about that, you're not actually getting any of the work done.
I absolutely agree with what you say. This isn't about men don't have empathy, women do, because that's not the case at
Mm.
all, not my experience
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
But I think having a more inclusive leadership style in general is what we're talking about,
yeah,
and recognizing that you can still have high performance and still care a lot about your
yeah,
people. And I think some people see those as a little bit where you can't have high performance if it's soft and fluffy, but that's not what we're talking
mm,
about. You can still have empathy, you can still care about your people, but you can still be ambitious, drive high performance. And I think getting that together is really important. And I think men do it well and women do it well.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think making sure that they're not exclusive, one
yeah,
or the other,
yeah.
I think is what's important.
Yeah, you don't have to just be, focused on performance. And actually, from years in manufacturing and supply chain, when people are the heart of everything you do, actually happy people, it means better productivity. So actually, it's much better to have both. So yes.
And I think, sorry, just gone back to manufacturing, I think that sometimes I think we have fallen into the trap maybe in history of it's all been about the performance and the output. And, I think that's where we're really trying, people are people and treating people as people and
Yeah.
thinking about rather than you're someone on the production line. So making sure, we and people have that opportunity to talk about what does a good day look like? When do I celebrate? When do we recognize good performance? All of those things are what really makes the difference, not what was the number. I think in treating people as humans, again, back to that original point.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look to the future then. So one of the things you've already talked about is attracting the next generation. What do you think needs to change? Is it this or is it something else that help? Because I do feel like
Yeah.
there's a bit of a talent crisis. There's been stuff in the news about less food science degrees, all of that sort of stuff. How are we going to attract people into this industry?
It's the age old thing, isn't it? I think we've really, as an industry, got to challenge that perception of it's not somewhere where you would choose to work. I think someone
Mm.
said that to me once. I was like, I've worked most of my career in the food industry. I love it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think once people get into the food
mm,
industry, they love it. But
yeah,
it's that there's something about the barrier to entry. And so I think we need to see different positions and different roles. I think, digitalization and data, even just changing the titles of jobs that we have
yeah,
in the food industry. I think we still talk about machine operators when actually a lot of what they're doing nowadays is optimizing data. We're moving away from those manual handling jobs where we're using robots and cobots to do that. So we're changing the face of it now. Maybe not at the speed that we'd like to, but I think there's a lot to learn from other industries there. But that's definitely something I think we need to do. I think we need to do more around what an amazing thing it is that we do. We
mm,
give people the food that they feed themselves and their family that nourishes them and gives them life. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's just an amazing role, right?
yeah.
And I don't think we make enough of that.
Yeah, and so it's almost a little bit of reframing around and getting people excited around the technology side of things, all of that. But it's also, there's lots of talk, isn't there, about younger generations coming through, purpose being so much more important.
Yes.
And actually,
Yes.
what greater purpose is there than, like you say, like nourishing the nation?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would love to have something else that is all about getting the industry to get better at PRing ourselves so that we can work on this. So anybody listening that wants to volunteer to do that, because I don't have enough hours in the day to do it, but I feel like there needs to be
No,
more,
definitely.
there are some campaigns around that, but,
Yeah, we've done some work with, people at university,
mm,
particularly women, and said, what once they've come to one of our sites, they go, wow, we didn't know this.
yeah,
But we're not necessarily in the right places either where they're looking when they're looking for jobs. I think that's another thing. Are we talking to the younger generation in the right places and the right spaces? And then I think that's something else that we can think about. What is
yeah,
it that they need to see? Where do they need to see us in order to think, oh, that career could be quite interesting. Let me find out more. I think
yeah.
as an industry, we're not the greatest at that.
No, you mean we're going to have to get on TikTok?
Yeah.
Fran, this has been such a amazing conversation, and there's so many different directions I've wanted to go in, and I've had to try and keep it to time, so I haven't been able to. So what I would love to hear from you is, talk to the listeners that are listening, and if listeners would take one action after listening to our conversation today, what would you want it to be?
I would say, are you really being yourself at work?
Hmm.
Are you really being true to yourself and bringing your whole self to work? And if you're not, really think about, is that the company that you want to work in? Because you're probably not giving as much as you could if you're not able to answer yes to that question. That would be my one thing. And be brave. Be brave. And that thing that you think, oh, I can't do, or I can't say no to, I think I would also say, just see what happens if
Yeah.
you do say no, I can't do that. Because I think we all have this fear of, what if I say no, that's the end of whatever. But just being more true to yourself
Yeah.
and saying no, and just, or I'm struggling or whatever. I think, that
Yeah.
authenticity
Yeah.
would be one piece of advice. And the sooner you do it in your career, I think it just enlightens you.
Yeah. I love that. My catchphrases for the podcast is be bold, be brave, be fearless. So it's a lot about what you just said. So I love that. Fran, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm on LinkedIn, and if you want to see more about what Arla's doing, Arla's also on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to share my my details with you if that would be helpful for you, Amy, as well.
Thank you, Fran. And thank you everybody for listening. A really great conversation, and I'll see you all next week. But thank you so much, Fran. It's been a really great conversation. That's a wrap on this episode of The Fearless Foodie. If it hit home, subscribe, leave a review and share it with someone who's ready for less fluff and more real talk. And if you're ready to build a bolder, braver, more brilliant team, come find me at fearlessfoodies.co.uk. Until next time, be bold, be brave, be fearless.